Number 36, Bolt Reaver Astalos. If someone asked me, who's the best deviant? My brain would say Bloodbath Diablos, but my heart says Bolt Reaver Astalos. Great design, as fun as it is challenging. Well, the EX deviant sure as hell hurts a lot, but 5 out of 5. A deviant that cooks as hard as the base monster, if not more so. The colors, in my opinion, are really good and just about as on par with the base Astalos. The fight is an Astalos turned up to 11, and it's just awesome for it. It'd be unfortunate if we won't see this guy again, but fingers crossed for the return of the deviants in the future. Another honorary 6 out of 5. The best deviant, in my opinion. He's an amazing evolution of base Astalos, amping the rambunctiousness of the fight up to 11. His electric assault unending, pelting you with a flurry of bolts. But all the while, I feel like the windows he provides for you to dish out damage are pretty generous, making him a tough as nails but fair encounter. It helps that he also just looks awesome. His blue lightning really making it feel like this is a monster at the peak of its power. Astalos is incredible. Bolt Reaver is excellent and maintains its 5-star rating from me. The blue charge looks beautiful, even in the lower res GU. Bolt Reaver has a nice handful of new moves to change up the fight, plus the huge head lightsaber attack is iconic. Even if base Astalos stole it for Sunbreak. Bolt Reaver is my favorite deviant next to Silverwind. The neon blue lightning and the electromagnetic spheres it fires out are what really sells it for me. 5 out of 5. Number 35. Risen Crimson Glow Volstrax. Every Volstrax is fantastic. Risen Volstrax is terrifying. This is legit one of the few monsters in the entirety of Sunbreak that actually worries me when going into its fight. No matter how many times I've fought it, the sheer speed and ferocity of this monster is always a challenge. First up, the scars across Risen Volstrax look excellent. Then it goes into its risen state and everything lights up orange and red while dragon energy just pours out of this thing's wing vents. It's absolutely phenomenal. Then you got the fight. It is brutal, incredibly aggressive, and has huge and deadly attacks. Risen Crimson Glow Volstrax never gives you a moment to breathe, forcing you to find your minuscule openings. And the new attacks it picks up are devastating. The extra stabs, the volley of dragon blast as part of the ambush dive, and the crazy spinning blade attack are all excellent additions to what was already one of the best fights in Rise Sunbreak without a doubt. 5 stars. Monster Hunter is at its best when 99% of the game is immersive and the monsters have a sense of realism to them. And then have the very last monsters just be some otherworldly creatures made out of jet fuel and hatred. Risen Crimson Glow Volstrax is the epitome of this. I love him so much. Already have a high Volstrax bias, but the new lance attacks and carpet bombs. They fix his issue where if you flinch him out of the laser, he'll just use it again. The new ambush is so sick. He's wicked fun and cool. Risen Crimson Glow Volstrax is just him. This is hands down my favorite fight in all of Monster Hunter. My favorite monsters were Magala, Dalamadur, and Volstrax, but fighting Risen Crimson Glow Volstrax, I can say he is my favorite monster. I loved this hunt so much that I grinded the anomaly research to level 300 by almost exclusively hunting Volstrax. It's the music, it's the design, it's the animations, the fast pace, the difficulty, the new ambush, the charged wing stab that is so satisfying to strong arm stance, and the hazard quest that adds a second wing stab after the first. That was the biggest jump scare of my entire life when I tried to strong arm it. I've hunted it about 100 times and he still kicks my ass every once in a while. Hands down, the best monster. I didn't think Volstrax could be cooler. And then they added the extra aerial explosions to his ambush and the new 360-degree wing spin move. Another W for the Risen Elders. 5 out of 5. Number 34, Risen Shagaru Magala. And finishing the Risen group, we come to Shagaru Magala. And once again, it's a magnificent monster with an incredible fight. It is on the short list with Risen Volstrax, Violet Mizu, and one other monster still coming up as battles that are always a challenge for me. Risen Shagaru Magala looks marvelous. The scars that light up with the sickly orange-purple glow are a great look for this beast, and the frenzy dust particles swirling around it and radiating from its attacks and explosions look gorgeous. The fight is absolutely brutal. Much like Risen Volstrax, you do not get time to breathe here. Risen Shagaru is on top of you at all times, or blasting frenzy lasers and explosions all over the arena. It is frantic and stressful and so much fun. The huge frenzy nuke is an awesome super move as well. So yeah, 5 stars, same as I've given for every Risen Elder Dragon. As a whole, the entire category of monsters was super cool and gave us some of the most intense and impressive fights in the game, possibly the entire series. Sadly, I doubt we will see them again, though I hope some of their abilities get absorbed into the base monsters here and there. The hands down king of the Risen fights, one of the highlights of Sunbreak and a damn fine upgrade to a monster that's already great. Another 5 out of 5 for the Risen Elders. One of the hardest monsters in the game, and if we're talking about the Hazard version, then the second hardest fight in 5th generation. Shaggy is my favorite Elder, so by proxy I love Risen, though not more than his base counterparts. You can really feel how powerful this guy is, especially when he uses his massive, screen-blocking laser of doom. His constant AoEs can be a little much, honestly. Feels like they kinda went overboard with how to balance endgame monsters for wire bug-based combat, but not to the point where I feel annoyed fighting him. He's a pretty damn awful matchup for Lance, though. I'll tell you that much. Like with the other Risens, I'm not a huge fan of the pale and scarred aesthetic, and he looks kind of messy when he's powered up, but he still looks cool in general. I will give him a 5 out of 5. Why not? He has an orbital laser ultimate attack. I repeat, he has an orbital laser ultimate attack. 5 out of 5, the weakest Hammer of Dawn enjoyer. The special investigation for Risen Shagaru, just him, no other monsters to reduce his health pools, is honestly up there with the EX Deviants and event quests of the days of old with how difficult he is. He is relentless, deals massive damage even with the best gear there is, and can easily triple card a team if you are not paying attention to every tiny movement that he does. One of my best memories was a one feint 2-player Max Risen Shagaru Primordial Malzeno investigation in the Kamura Arena. Me and my friend did the special investigation and failed many times. On the winning run, it was so intense that my friend ended up hurting his jaw from the clench. So we now call that quest the Jawbreaker. Number 33, Flaming Espanas. Feels very significantly different to fight. Also, looks different enough. Had a lot of fun with flaming. Also, some very good weapons in Sunbreak. 5 stars. I gave the normal Espanas 4 stars. Espanas was just missing a little something extra, and Flaming Espanas cranks up the heat enough to feel quite memorable. The DLC monsters really get the room they need to stretch their wings in Sunbreak. Flaming is the perfect example of how to do a subspecies that improves upon the original monster. It's faster, stronger, and his cutscene of him tanking Teostra's fire breath before nuking said Teostra with fire is a perfect display of how strong Flaming is. But not only is he cooler thanks to his newly improved colors, thanks to Sunbreak's 5th generation graphics, but he is a bit goofy too, thanks to his goofy ass walk that he does as he does his nuke attack. It's the goofiest yet most terrifying thing in Monster Hunter, and I love it. 5 stars, baby, my favorite flying wyvern. He's everything the regular Espanas is, but better. Replacing the paralyzing fireballs with defense down makes him more dangerous. Plus, he's the only monster in Sunbreak who has a one-shot nuke. Flaming has so much personality, and I love it. The colors might be a little less vibrant and interesting, but he makes up for it with the crazy fireball attack and new combos. Love that monster. This is what a same element subspecies should be. Everything awesome about Espanas, with a new incredibly fun moveset, I'm looking at you, Azure-Rathalos, that turns one aspect of the fight up to 11. Where I felt disappointed by Pyrarachna's lack of deviation from the original monster, Flaming Espanas showed up to make a subspecies feel refreshing and unique to hunt, without a drastic change to the monster's core concept. 5 out of 5. Number 32, Deviljho. One of the most unique, distinct personalities in any monster in the franchise, and he only gets better and better each game. His appearance in Tri is iconic, and he's the first invader and still the best invader. Love him. No monster feels as threatening as him during gameplay. Just seeing that this dude spawned on a quest is enough reason to consider restarting. He's the only monster that goes out of his way to follow you in your quarry from area to area, and when all three of you in the same room, things can get messy real quick. His actual fight is decent. He always feels a bit spongy to me, but he is a satisfying fight. Easy enough to dodge, but slip up, and he hits hard. Swell guy. Absolutely terrifying when you first encounter him, between his design, his music, and how much damage he does, and it makes him so satisfying to fight for real. One of the best. Long live the pickle. In my opinion, Joe is the perfect design for an ultimate apex predator. Designed after the largest land predator ever discovered, the T-Rex, with traits from both a crocodile and a shark, possessing ridiculous levels of strength, aggression, and surprising speed and devious behavior. Also being the only base species that's not an elder to use the dragon element. Truly a terrifying monster, and my personal favorite. Love this thing and how it subverts the trope of Rex inspiration equals big bite force, because Deviljho doesn't have a strong bite. It relies on using its enormous weight to crush other monsters, as Deviljho likely developed from a bygone era. Great fight, great design, awesome design inspirations. It has everything but ecology in my opinion, because I think big ecosystem, wiper, go gra is kind of a weird trope for an animal. 5 stars. Number 31, Shara-Ishvalda. Legitimately, my favorite Elder Dragon design-wise. Everything amazing about her has already been said to death, such as the body reveal and the eyes opening and following your camera, but hell, that's what makes her so memorable. I adore the color and branch-like design of the body, as well as the geode inside of her head that you can break off of her crown. A phenomenal theme on this one too. The mod that replaces her theme with gas money is amazing as well. I absolutely adore this guy, from his surprise reveal to the anxiety-filled track. His rock golem form is sort of basic but not out of the ordinary, and then it peels all that off to show off this gaunt, tree-like thing underneath that doesn't even show off its final surprise yet. My favorite detail is how they use Buddha statues as inspiration for its eyes, as they both use concave discs to make the eyes always look at you. The implication is that there's more to Shara. That's so intriguing, and I hope that never gets explained. At least, not completely explained. 5 out of 5. One of the best subversion bosses in the series. From phase 1 to 3, I couldn't wipe a smile off my face the first time I encountered it. Each phase feeling the right amount of different from the last. The armor and the weapons and Palico gear shine bright as well, with Asian influence in its design, making it another standout and fairly unique set. Also, those eyes, perfectly creepy upon first encounter. A beautiful abomination. That is Shara-Ishvalda in a nutshell. Where do I even begin? The design is great on both forms, with the golem form feeling otherworldly as he genuinely looks like he's made out of rocks, and then the free reign form having this ethereal Hindu feel with its flowery ridges and pink hide and golden eyes that kind of track you. His music is stellar with the Indian instrumentals, all with the fast-paced and the slower segments. The fight is also really fun as you try to dodge his vibration blasts in all different directions, plus him being the only higher level Elder Dragon fight in Iceborne with no cut time limits or damage checks is kind of refreshing. 50 minutes and 3 carts. That's it. Story-wise, he's well utilized too, as he helps drive more of the plot than some of the other final bosses on first glance. Overall, he's my favorite final boss in the entirety of 5th generation, and hopefully he comes again in another mainline game. 5 out of 5. An amazing final boss after the disappointment that was Xeno'jiiva. I was expecting the same kind of Adishara, honestly, but he blew me away, pun not intended. Him staring at you is horrifying. It's like he knows more than us and can see straight through your soul. The post-fight cutscene was awesome, and him taking inspiration from Buddhism added an extra holy layer to him. 5 out of 5 for this one. Number 30. With this next entry, we're going to be going back to Unnatural History Channel as he talks about Odogaron.
I do think Odogaron essentially represents the best of the new content world, and probably 5th gen in general, had to offer. As with this series in general, Odogaron really is a monster that just excels at essentially everything. At every level the fight is a delight, with it being one of the best and most fast-paced back and forths the series has given. The rapidity and rabidity of Odogaron's attacks, all inflicted bleed and faked staggers, really keeps you on your toes, and without ever needing to stop and line up an elemental ranged attack, it's just all teeth, claws and physical blows. Even other speedsters like Narg and Magna still give breathers as they aim Hellfire or Quills. Odogaron never gives you a break, which only makes getting rid of that bleed more difficult. As with the rest of world monsters too, there's plenty environmental use, as Odo slinks between his tunnels or ricochets off the wall to sell his agility even further. This continues out of the fight as well, and you can see Odogaron engaging in his day-to-day life as he feeds on carrion and drags Legiana corpses about the Vale, or of course gets into fights with others. As turf war wise, Odogaron is one of the best, and a monster that says so much with every struggle it engages in. Combined with Anjanath, they're the best and most effective uses of turf wars as an environmental storytelling tool in world. He uses speed to exceed the lumbering Radoban, but grinds to a halt against the Vale's creator when he takes on Valhazak, and gets gassed into oblivion. A stark reminder of Val's sedentary power, and how blood-fueled aggression isn't quite the buff some think it is. In the Vale, he no-sells Sitzi's flash because he's essentially blind, and gets through all of Palumu's defences too. Whilst the series occasionally limply uses the idea of monsters displaced to where they shouldn't be, as either a plot point or excuse to scatter randos anywhere, he really shows the idea of a foreign species causing havoc in a place where they don't belong, by being able to so easily ignore the adaptations of the local monsters. With Great Gyros, who he doesn't turf war with, he still has a more fitting show-don't-tell aspect, with Gyros being weaker than Odo, but often defeating him with paralysis instead. Design-wise, Odogaron hits on multiple levels too, with symbolism that doesn't overpower the fact he's still a living thing, and naturalism without straying too close to just being a copy of an animal. All at once, he's a hellhound, a therapsid, a kamatachi, and a rabid dog, all the while being artistically suited to the Vale with the appearance of being skinless himself. Much of this is carried through to his gear as well, with the slick zombie samurai wolf mail armour, and weapons often based on those from feudal Japan. Odogaron is also a rare mainline original monster that gets improved on every level by the DLC as well. Rather than just stale stat buffing, a horrible subspecies, or their inclusion into a map where they don't belong, the fight is just generally made an even tighter experience. He gets an excellent and fitting subspecies that builds on the original, and succeeds in adding an element to an elementless monster without it feeling trite, and rather he stays in his home and lets the challengers come to him, getting a great variety of new turf wars that continue to sell him as the pint-sized Napoleon monster punching above his weight, without ignoring his weaknesses, nor coming across as glazing. Whereas some of World's new monsters like Nerg deliver fantastic fights and designs, but with little of the environmental interaction that really sold the game as a living world, and some of the lower monsters like Jagras, Kula or Puki, who are loaded with character and ecology but insufficient challenge, Odogaron imbibes itself with everything that made World, and made World great. Overall, there just isn't a weak link in the chain when it comes to Odogaron. He is quite simply a fantastic monster that delivers on all fronts. I rag on World monsters a lot, and will continue to do so during this stage of voting, but this, in my opinion, is one of World's absolute triumphs, and my personal favourite of World/Iceborne. Great design with a really cool aggressive fight and a great use of bleed. or how flinches send it into its biggest combo, fun stuff. The eating mechanic is interesting, and ties into it having hidden fire elements on its weapons. Capcom was also nice enough to make all its weapons except the lance actually unique, even if they only gave it 5 weapons, and they all look sick. I waited this entire survey for Odogaron to appear. Odogaron is my favourite monster in the entire series. World was my first Monster Hunter game, and up until I reached Odo, I had been having a fairly easy time with the game. Odogaron didn't move like anything else in the game prior to him. He was fast and his moves were varied. He gave what felt like a crippling status effect, and it felt like I could never hit him. Odogaron was the first monster that really challenged me to learn his tells over multiple hunts. I learned to use my environment, like making the Gyros pack attack him to take advantage of his paralysis weakness. When I finally defeated Odo, I felt like an actual monster hunter. Absolutely my favourite monster. My first real wall of world, and it absolutely kicked my butt for hours. The first time you see it enter, the adrenaline rush is insane, and the way it uses its nest for wall jumps and destroying the vines to reveal the greater area. The bleed mechanic works super well in Veil, as well as with all the bushes that you have to use to hide from him in. The visuals as well are simplistic and amazing. A bony demon dog with double claws, what's not to like? Finally, the armour and weapon designs are some of the best in the entire series, as they capture elements of the monster as well as the overall vibe they wanted. It would be a crime if the Beta Master Rank set didn't ever come back. My favourite Fanged Wyvern, and probably the best world original monster. He has one of the most metal designs in the entire series, has an equally fitting theme, and has great ecology. What with him serving as the scavenger archetype within the ecosystem of the new world. His fight is awesome too, being extremely fast, hitting hard, and reintroducing the bleed status. But he never feels annoyingly fast and is very readable, with wide punish windows in between attacks. The perfect glass cannon monster. 5 stars I say. One of the most feature-complete monsters Capcom have ever made. Amazingly badass design, very fun fight that never gets old, sick looking weapons and armors, especially Master Rank armor, and loads of turf wars with all kinds of monsters. Odogaron is just one of the best monsters they've ever created.
Number 29. Seregios. That's my boy right there. Seregios is the greatest monster they've ever made, and they're never gonna top him. Design-wise, Seregios is great. The golden scales are wonderfully vibrant and the big sharp horn is iconic. I feel I should have more to say, but it's simply a great design and wicked memorable. Seregios really shines in the fight, however. It's fast and frantic as you get pummeled from the claw attacks and the blade scales. Bleed is one of my favorite statuses, and Seregios is the proprietor of it. Uses it incredibly well. Their health is a little bit low and can lead to a bit of a glass cannon kind of fight, but honestly, that's a positive for me. It does a lot in making it more unique, and not that it isn't already. Seregios becoming my favorite monster just sort of happened, to be honest. I don't have some kind of arc in overcoming a great wall or anything. I just fought him and thought he was pretty great. Fought them some more just to get some weapons, and the gimmick with him was just really cool, and bada bing, bada boom, new favorite. And Sunbreak just cemented that fact. As I said at the start of this comment, I don't think any monster will ever top Seregios as my favorite. Unless they make an epic deer or something, or Seregios 2, one of those things. 6 out of 5. An absolute gem of a monster that Capcom keeps over. No variation to this day, despite a couple return appearances, gradually taking the things that made him unique and giving them to other monsters as armor set skills. Doomed in the West by 4U being the only release over here and keeping Gore on the Western cover, also just being the follow-up to Gore. A simple and excellent design, fast-paced, thrilling fight. Steve deserves so much better. Seregios is a perfect monster. It's the best example of how simplicity can lead to great results without any need for fancy bells and whistles. I hate how much he is forgotten as a flagship. Maybe he isn't as flashy as some of the others, but his fight is an adrenaline rush without any fancy elemental power. It's just sheer hatred and aggression. An underrated king amongst the most heavily populated monster category. While Sunbreak brought him into the 5th generation, I believe he still has so much more to show us. His design philosophy and ecology leaves near endless promise for subspecies and variants, and it's a shame he has never received one. As the bleed monster, I think he does every job he's given excellently. And what's crazy is that he still seems to have more that he could do. 5 out of 5. Number 28. Alatreon. My first game of the series was Worlds. And having followed that up, I had a vague idea of what I would be up against. All 5 elements and their blights. A few big things, but not enough to prepare me for what we got. The spectacle, having to learn his weaknesses and heavily capitalize on them. Raw damage not being what's needed, but instead elemental. It took me and my crew a solid week to week and a half to take him down for the first time. Between learning his patterns, learning to hard focus the horns, and also to balance the elements being brought with us. Fatalis was basically just a pure numbers game, and he was excellent, but in comparison, he was kinda just hard. Alatreon was a massive hurdle, and unlike Fatalis, required a whole set of custom gear to finally be put down. He was a challenge in a technical way, one that beat into me the real value of element, which I had mostly ignored until then, and used mostly as an auxiliary thing to do a tad more damage. Alatreon made me a better build crafter, and for that he will always have a spot in my heart. Genuinely one of the best fights in Iceborne. It feels hard, but never feels unfair. My one problem is I think they could have been a little bit more creative with Eschaton beyond just big shockwave, you die. 5 stars, easily. The Iceborne fight carries him so hard here, as the other fights aren't as good. Alatreon's design is simple, but emphasizes his beautiful horns. His roar is so memorable, even if I can't put into words what it actually sounds like. The gimmick of elemental damage makes sense, given that Alatreon is the elemental king. There's such a relief when you finally get that topple, and you're doing a good job containing Alatreon's power is heard. It means that when Judgment comes, you have a better chance of not getting incinerated by it. For hunters that haven't fought Alatreon in Old World, there is no elemental damage requirement. You might think that's good, but Alatreon wasn't too memorable. He didn't have a wide pool of attacks, and him flying was obnoxious. His aerial icicle attack was actually his ultimate attack rather than Eschaton Judgment. In GU, he was even worse because Ingle Isle is one of the most annoying arenas in my opinion. Personally, I still want to record a solo of Iceborne Alatreon and be able to fight 3U's Alatreon in a non-event quest. As of Iceborne, he is genuinely one of the absolute best fights in the entire series. The design is awesome and over the top in a way that's cool and exudes power, in a way a black dragon should. The atmosphere of his fight is excellent. He's got fantastic lore and conspiracy around him, and his fight is challenging, firm but fair, and I don't care what anyone says. People who review bomb the game are babies that need to man up and realize that it's hard for them, and that's okay. You actually have to rise to the challenge. I love how he's a monster that forces you to play the game his way, and you need to bring stuff to counter him and actually think about the fight. Genuinely amazing, and I wish I could give him a 6 star. Even my ass could beat Alatreon, and I'm completely at the game. You literally don't even need to make a specific set for him. Just an elemental weapon with decent elemental damage will do. You might faint twice, but you can still beat him. Number 27, White Fatalis. Aesthetically, the best Fatalis. The white skin and fur on the neck contrasted with the neon red dragon element lightning. Banger theme, the Frontier one especially is divine. Love how there's a giant black hole over the arena. In a modern Monster Hunter game, he has even more potential than the normal Fatalis. I simply love him. 5 out of 5. I'm a simple man. I see a white bearded dragon rain blood red thunder from the sky. I like. Really love the ancestral music that plays as you fight this possibly prolific dragon that destroyed a kingdom long ago. Though once he gets the modern treatment, then I'm sure he'll be flawless. 4 out of 5. Absolutely spectacular version of the monster. Easily my favorite. His fight is a spectacle. His armor looks sick. He has a dope theme. What else is there to say? He's a great monster. I also think this guy is incredible. A creature who has conquered the power of dragon energy to the point of summoning it from the very heavens. Plus, he can make a freaking wormhole appear. I also think his personality is fantastic. Instead of Fatalis' usual burning hatred, it's a patient malice. He does hate you, and he will kill you, but he will wait for that glorious victory. 5 out of 5. 4 stars. Of the 2 Fatalis alternates, he is easily the superior version, and the fight is better than the original Fatalis in the old gens, having some more active aspects to it. The design is interesting and cool, the dragon lightning is terrifying, but unfortunately, old gen Fatalis is just not that great of a fight. This is probably the best version of that fight, hence its higher placement than Crimson, but it's still held back by the original source. Were this to receive an update to Modern, I think it could be absolutely awe-inspiring. Number 26, Lucent Naruga. 5 stars, no question, largely on the strength of the Sunbreak incarnation. To be fair, the original fight looks pretty good too, but holy moly is the Sunbreak fight fantastic. First off, the appearance is great. The cool pale grays accenting the darker smoky fur here and there really works well in the moonlit foggy arena where you fight it. I don't know if it's just my eyes playing tricks on me, but the wing blades even seem more shiny, perhaps from the stronger lighting and brighter fur. Regardless, a beautiful, eerie look for a dangerous ambush predator. Then we have the fight, and what a fight it is. Sunbreak Lucent is fast and relentless, remixing a number of base Naruga moves with some fun variations and upping the speed dramatically. The fading in and out of visibility in between attacks is great and really keeps you on your toes. The ability to track its movements through disturbances in the fog is a magnificent touch and really adds to the ambiance and looming threat of the monster. The crazy feral spin attack is kinda silly but still very dangerous, striking fast and covering a large area for high damage. The rings of tail spikes it can launch to rain down make for a fun area awareness detail, and of course, the super attack where it goes absolutely savage, turns invisible, leaps all over the battlefield, then appears right on top of you before bringing its tail slamming down on your head is marvelous and scary as hell. An absolutely fantastic monster with one of the coolest damn fights. 5 out of 5 from me. Definitely my favorite of all the Narugas. The fact that this monster's habitat is still a mystery is pretty cool, though we do know he can go to the Forlorn Arena. But I'm a firm believer that there are more habitats for these guys. I just can't say for sure, but I think you can find them in locales like the Citadel, but filled with mist and only in full moons. I'm probably the #1 Naruga hater around these parts. I don't actually hate him, I just don't find him appealing, dislike the fight, and find him fairly boring, but I got nothing bad to say about Lucent. He was a massive improvement over every single thing I found boring or bad with regular Naruga, and Sunbreak made me like him even better, and he's really fun to fight. Also, his design is sick as hell. 5 out of 5. Though I love original Naruga, I think Lucent is a bit of a silly design, going literally invisible instead of being a stealthy ambush predator is, in my opinion, a little less cool and realistic. I do think a white coloration is a good choice, though. I also think poison is a good choice because assassins equal poison. Also, you would have poison and bleed, so take even more damage as you avoid the fast monster. 4 out of 5. Number 25, Safijaa. For a Fatalis-esque Western dragon, Safijaa pronounced himself as soon as his theme began. That captured my heart after hearing it. The variations from Mount to Enrage down to his final phase, it's all woven beautifully into my favorite theme in the entire series, hands down. Another true raid boss added in Iceborne. It overall feels like a better behemoth fight, not as varied in its attacks, but resolute in what it's capable of, with an amazing set of armor and weapons that react as you unsheathe them and begin the battle after meticulously crafting it in the way that you want. Seeing the full effect of the armor take place as you fight other monsters is something I won't soon forget. 15 out of 5 for this guy. The one fight that benefited from World's MMO mechanics. The aggro mechanic is cool, and its weapons being able to contribute to set bonuses is absolutely fantastic. 5 stars, an amazing battle. I love the build up to the final phase as you go deeper and deeper into the environment and he starts to gain new moves and new combos. He has a simple design, an amazing theme, the super mode with the galaxy wings and the super move and the moment of silence before the massive explosion all round out my favorite siege fight. The giant, angry red bow that tied up World's story and helped me appreciate Xeno a lot more. I think it's pretty unanimously accepted that Safijaa is mechanically the best siege hunt Capcom has ever made, however much it pains me to admit it. But they really hit home with this guy. He's threatening, he's difficult, he's satisfying to hunt, and he doesn't make you run the gauntlet over and over and over to get the kind of weapon that you need. He does, however, make you run the gauntlet to make those weapons usable, which kinda sucks. The music in Arena is on point too. From the upper layers of of barren rock and dead skin to the burning depths full of cocoons and glowing water. It's an amazing locale. I love the themes Safijaa explores and the question brought up to why humanity is allowed to reshape the environment to suit us better, but when this monster does it, we immediately kill it. 5 out of 5. I adore almost every little aspect of this monster and its fight and its lore, but even if I hated every second of it, that ultimate attack, the Sapphire of the Emperor, is still the single most awesome thing I have ever seen in the franchise. Number 24, Mizu. This bubble dude is my son. The apple of my eye, my beloved boy, my all-time favorite monster. His blight is just too fun, and his design and theme divine. I love his color palette and how his features fit his ecology so well. Peak creature design. Mizu sells the idea of monsters being animals in this world, and the different takes on him work extremely well. Deviant and subspecies, etc. Framing him as a more dangerous and aggressive due to circumstances is not only nice for progression in a gameplay standpoint, but expresses that animals can change and become different in behavior and aggression based on circumstance. Love 'em, chef's kiss. What to say that others haven't? Well, I think Mizu is an excellent example of stepping away from fang and claw and into something more fey in color scheme, outline, sound design, and movement. It's a big departure from the bulk and brass of many monsters and stands out all the more for it. It's a bubble kitsune. Now, if only those damn claws were easier to hit and faster to break. Phenomenal monster, easy 5 out of 5. His design is extravagant and unique. The fight feels more like a dance with how he moves, and the status he brings is both a detriment and an upgrade depending on how many times the bubbles hit you. He's also one of the few returning fights in Rise that I feel is an improvement over his original version. Fantastic monster all around. The second best Leviathan, and most people's favorite of the Fated Four, and for good reason too, since he's such a strikingly unique monster with an incredibly fun hunt to boot. Shame his variations on him lack the same creativity and diversity, and are just kinda all three of the same fire monster. 5 out of 5 though. 5 stars. My girlfriend's favorite monster, my 4th favorite. Back when Generations came out, we were informed of a Bubble Fox Legiacris, and we were hyped about it. Open night sky. This absolute beauty of a creature, and then the Japanese music kicked in. I knew what I was in for. This wasn't a fight, it was a dance, and he was punishing in GU. My god, we got destroyed. He has the balls to fight Zinogre, so you gotta know he's a favorite of mine. If they don't bring back underwater combat, but Legiacris returns, I hope they take after Mizu and Almudron, because they proved that land Leviathans can absolutely work. We weren't officially together at the time, but I feel like farming Mizutsune brought us a lot closer. And if he did, that's just another reason why he's in both of our top 10s. Number 23, Amatsu. Absolutely stunning monster design, lore, and fight. Its new fight in Sunbreak truly gives it this feeling of being the Storm monster, with Thunder Mastery added to its moveset. Lore-wise, the history with Kagero, if I'm remembering his name correctly, is good. The Apex Zinogre Turf War is amazing, as in my heart, it's the same Zinogre that got its ass beaten in the Portable Third cutscene that came all the way to get its revenge. Design-wise, it has always been one of my favorite Elder Dragons because of both its appearance in itself and everything around it that it's impacted by his presence. The wind barrier, the heavy storm filled with red lightning bolts and massive rain. I especially love the moment you slay it because it's like the sky itself is thanking you for what you've done, with sun rays coming in and this triumphant theme playing. By the way, Amatsu's themes are among my favorite ones because for me it depicts quite well the idea of fighting something truly threatening and windy with a bit of Japanese identity mixed in. That's an awesome job done here. His armor looks really cool as well. Definitely deserves at least a 9 out of 10 from my perspective. What an amazing fight. The music, the design, just perfect. In GU, it's one of the best fights in the game, but Sunbreak just made it one of the best fights in the franchise. Incredible monster. Amatsu's a spectacle. The Sunbreak fight is one of my favorite experiences in that game. The design is great. The massive sails are majestic, the colors are amazing too, though through all the storms, sometimes you can't see them that well. Amatsu's fight starting off with just him floating past the prep area is already a great start, and it only gets better. It's just fun. Dodging tornadoes is a blast, the water and lightning attacks are great. The arena where you fight Amatsu admittedly doesn't really work, the ballista feel a little tacked on, but that doesn't detract from the fight at all. The part where Apex Zynoga or Volstrax comes in and attacks Amatsu is a highlight. The real main issue with Amatsu, however, is that the fight is a bit style over substance. I compare it to the All-Mother a lot in my head. They're both floating serpent elder dragons with the power over weather. And I think All-Mother is overall stronger as a fight, while Amatsu just has a stronger spectacle and aesthetics. Not that the fight's bad, it's great, it just could be a little better. None of that means Amatsu gets anything less than a 5 out of 5, it's a phenomenal monster. Before Sunbreak, I'd always been fond of Amatsu, especially his sound design and presence. That ecology cutscene of the airship being caught up in the storm, only to see Amatsu glide out of the clouds, making these ethereal, almost whale-like, but also completely foreign sounds, then effortlessly ascend and unleash a massive blast of water, not to mention the final shot of him just floating there staring at you. Seeing that shot redone in his intro cutscene made me know I was in for a good time. Then, the fight itself. It was already hectic enough getting used to the new monster and his moveset in phase 1, and the music sounds like it's literally being sucked into a storm as it builds, goes silent, only for Amatsu to let out a deep enraged roar as the storm vesicle begins to glow, his red spots on his fins darken, and the music properly kicks off into phase 2. The addition of lightning, the unrelenting wind, the water attacks, the 2 to 3 big set piece moves that he has, and not to mention Utsushi, the guy he is ditching to go get an Apex Zynoga in out of nowhere. I was at Amatsu within an hour of the update, fully blind, and that moment specifically was Zynoga's theme kicking off as they fight. Knowing the rivalry of the two species had was genuinely breathtaking. I don't have as much personal attachment to Amatsu as some of the monsters higher up on my favorites list, but I go back to Sunbreak every now and then to specifically fight him, and a few other monsters. Number 7 on my top 10, 5 out of 5 score, he is fantastic. Number 22, Crimson Glow Volstrax. Love the delayed dragon explosions, the crazy laser, and the speed, but like many monsters in Rise, they made him smaller, and personally I don't quite like the bluish color palette. I like the more pure silver coloration of the base one, or Risen. That said, yes, he's still a monster that deserves 5 stars. In my opinion, Crimson Glow is a straight improvement from regular Volstrax in every area but the theme. The hovering looks great, the beam is amazing, and his armor is phenomenal. Easily one of the best variants in the series for me. 5 out of 5. The only downgrade Crimson Glow has to its regular counterpart is the theme. Other than that, it's a straight upgrade. The design changes are fairly small compared to other variants, more red around the wings and chest, and a more bluish silver. I personally prefer Crimson Glow's palette, but I get why most prefer the original. The fight is fantastic. It takes everything from the already great original and makes it even better. The hovering is very small, but a great addition, and the massive beam laser is fantastic. The other minor changes are improvements to the fight as well. My third favorite monster. All I have to say is 5 out of 5. Before Master Rank. Pretty fun. Man, this theme just slaps so damn hard with like the Japanese instruments intermixed in there. Master Rank. Oh dear Lord Almighty, he's doing the laser twice. Fucking run for your lives. I like Crimson Glow, but not as much as the original. His biggest weakness, in my opinion, is that he's significantly smaller than the original, so his big sweeping wing attacks aren't quite as threatening. He does have a decent stable of new moves though, so that somewhat makes up for it. Number 21, Gosar. A polar bear monster that makes ice swords is cool. Knowing its attacks and openings for you to break those ice swords and get a knockdown is super satisfying too. And that one move it does when you're stunned is amazing. Oh, 10 stars. My favorite new monster. I love him. His designs, his weapons, his master rank armor is excellent in both design and skills. Everything about him is peak. And finally, a strong bear monster. Probably the strongest addition to the Monster Hunter roster that Rise made, as in base game Rise, not Sunbreak. That's a whole different beast. It strikes the balance of yokai inspirations, real-life animals, and crazy fun fights that all Rise monsters sought to achieve, not lacking in a single aspect. As a personal fan of the bear frame, it also feels great to see it taken to greater heights, difficulty and quality-wise. I hope Gosar sticks around. Wow, I missed this guy yesterday. Gosar is my favorite fanged beast in the series. His design is killer. His fight is extremely fun and engaging. He manages to stand upright and use weapons while still feeling like an animal, because bears can stand up, and his weapon usage is clumsy enough to still feel very animalistic. And his gear is awesome, with the armor sets looking appropriately brutish and the weapons looking good and barbaric in a great way. I love that the bear side of the Fanged Beast category finally has a Rathalos level entry, even if it's not quite as threatening as, say, a Rajang. I definitely like fighting him more than Rajang, that's for sure. I really want to see this guy come back sooner rather than later, and a subspecies would be amazing. Gosar is a monster I had to fight to like. When I first saw it, I wasn't that impressed. An ice-based bear with a weird looking face and blades. I didn't think I'd be a fan, but then when I played the game and it was time to encounter this thing, I did a complete 180 on my opinion, because the fight is awesome. Unenraged is not that much of a threat, but once its skin flares to red, you better be ready. The Ice Blade attacks are surprisingly unpredictable, as it just kinda tumbles around most of the time, and they hit like a truck. I remember being excited to fight him in Sunbreak, booting up the quest, and immediately just getting one shot. Yeah, you should probably upgrade your armor when facing it. Goss also has a surprising amount of personality for something with a face like that. Just take its interaction with a stunned hunter, for example. That's utterly terrifying. It also always looks a little tired, to be honest, as if it stayed up all night taking lives. All in all, Goss is one of the most fun fights Base Rise has to offer, and the design and personality are not lacking at all. I'd love to see it return sometime very soon.